Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the adrenal cortex and aldosterone. This is endocrine video number 4 in the series. Make sure you've watched 1 through 3 before you come back here. Last time we were talking about our long and short-term stress responses and the adrenal gland. Today we're going to talk about something else. This is a system that is not under control of the hypothalamus, but is very important. This has to do with blood pressure homeostasis. The adrenal cortex is also very important in producing a hormone that affects blood pressure homeostasis. In this particular homeostatic loop, when we have a decrease in blood pressure, that drop in blood pressure will be detected by an area of the kidney called the juxtaglomerular complex. The juxtaglomerular complex will release renin, an enzyme that starts a cascade of different actions. And in the end, 2 different things are going to happen. One is you're going to get vasoconstriction of the peripheral blood vessels, and you're going to actively transport sodium in the kidneys. Constricting those blood vessels is going to increase blood pressure, and sodium reabsorption is going to cause more water to follow, because we all know water follows the stuff, increasing blood volume and therefore increasing blood pressure. So our blood pressure is our stimulus. The juxtaglomerular complex is going to be, once again, both the receptor and the control center. Renin is going to be the first in a long series of instructions, and our kidney tubules and our blood vessels are going to be the effectors. Let's talk about how this part works. So we start out with the kidney. We know that this whole system, called the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, it gets started because blood pressure drops or sodium concentration drops. The kidney is going to produce renin. Renin's going to act on another chemical that's already in the blood. The liver produces a chemical called angiotensinogen. When renin is available, it will act on angiotensinogen and turn it into something called angiotensin I. Angiotensinogen is in the blood. Once it gets converted into angiotensin I, it's still in the blood, circulating around the body. When that chemical gets to the lungs, it's going to be acted on by something called angiotensin converting enzyme. And that enzyme is going to convert angiotensin I into angiotensin II. And this is a pretty important chemical. It has far-ranging effects. The first effect is that it's going to cause your blood vessels to vasoconstrict. You can see how they've gotten smaller here. So we've decreased the volume, which is going to increase the pressure. So this is going to increase our blood pressure. The second thing that angiotensin does is it's going to act on our good old adrenal glands. And it's actually going to act on the adrenal cortex. Remember, before we learned about how the adrenal cortex was important in long-term stress response through cortisol. However, in this case, we're going to be causing the adrenal cortex to produce something called aldosterone, which is a hormone that acts back on the kidney. It's actually going to act on that collecting duct and cause the reabsorption of sodium and therefore water. So here we are back at this picture, and this time I'm going to make aldosterone be purple. So here we have our blood, and when the blood pressure falls or sodium falls, we're going to have aldosterone circulating through the blood. Aldosterone is going to bind to receptors on the cells that are lining the collecting duct in the kidneys. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause a pump to be inserted on that apical surface. And it's going to take sodium ions and it's going to actively transport them out of the filtrate and into these cells that are lining the kidney tubule. When that happens, you have now created a gradient. You have much more sodium inside these cells than you do in the filtrate. And so what's going to fix it? Water. Water is going to follow the stuff. And it's going to leave the filtrate and the kidney tubule and go back into the blood. So this is a way to conserve water. Now remember, we also have another way to conserve water. Remember, we learned about ADH, which does a similar action in that we're going to bind to these kidney tubule cells and cause the insertion of aquaporins onto this apical surface. Both ADH and aldosterone are going to cause increase of water reabsorption, but they do it in slightly different ways. ADH inserts aquaporins and water goes in passively down its gradient. Aldosterone is going to actively transport sodium ions and water will follow this stuff. They often work together. The end result is that reabsorption of water is going to increase blood volume, which increases blood pressure, and the vasoconstriction of blood vessels will reduce the volume of the vessels and therefore increase blood pressure systemically. That's it for today. See you in class.